everybody, welcome to the Good Evening Kitties podcast, a Tales from the Crypt review. My name is Melissa, your ghostess with the mostest, and this episode is Season 4, Episode 9, King of the Road. With me today I have my friend Cindy. Cindy!
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here. I'm going to totally have to turn that down. Cindy, thanks for being here today. It's your first time, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what history you have with Tales from the Crypt, if any?
Actually, I don't really have any. I may have watched it as a kid and just don't remember, but I honestly don't. So I'm a first-timer for everything, including being on a podcast.
All right. And you also said, I think earlier, that you're kind of starting to watch Tales from the Crypt now a little bit.
Yes.
So, okay. Cool. So we'll get into this episode here. As always, John Kassir does the voice of the Crypt Keeper and Danny Elfman does the theme song. This episode aired August 8th, 1992. It was directed by Tom Holland, who also directed movies like Child's Play. The screenplay is by J. Randall Johnson. It stars Raymond J. Barry from TV's X-Files and TV's Hyperion Bay. It also has a very young Brad Pitt, and he's in all the movies because he's Brad Pitt. I thought about what movie to put down, and I was like, you know what, he's Brad Pitt, so you know him.
World War Z.
Yeah.
I mean, you can name like so many. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where he met his estranged wife.
Are they estranged?
I don't know.
They got so many babies. And also, it stars Michelle Bronson from movies like Blossom Time. I'm going to read here the back of the box to explain what they put for the description for King of the Road. Nothing's fiercer than the human race. A drag racer goads a cop into competing by kidnapping the man's daughter. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started here. This episode opens up, I was a little surprised because it's the Crypt Keeper, but the Crypt Keeper's talking about theater and not about racing, which is what this episode's all about. Normally, for the most part, the episodes have something to do with the theme. There's only a rare instance where I'm like, I don't know what this has to do with it. But yeah, so he's doing a whole bunch of puns about the play, about plays and theater, and he brings in the episode, again, Season 4, Episode 9, King of the Road. So yeah, I'm not sure what it quite has to do with theater, if anything, but it really doesn't matter. We're just happy to see the Crypt Keeper. This episode opens up, it's a drag race. I'll talk about it later. There's some theories I have with it, but then I changed my mind. I don't know. I'd like to think of this episode a little more supernatural, but I don't think it really is. So it starts out, there's two guys racing. One of those is Brad Pitt. He's very young and hunky. Cindy,
Sure, if
Cindy
you say
doesn't
so.
think so.
If you say so. Kind of going back, though, to the comment that you made about the Crypt Keeper, and he was talking about theater. I think he was kind of alluding to hubris, maybe a little bit, because it seems like, and I mean, we'll kind of figure it out as we go along, that, like, one of the characters has a lot of hubris in him. And you notice a lot of, like, Shakespearean characters, a lot of them are more prone to, like, this hubris, like, aspect. So I think that may have been what the theme, or maybe the allusion to, like, what the theme might have been.
Yeah, it might be a little bit, yeah. Sometimes they're real vague. So yeah, so there's a car race here. You know, it's like drag race, and they got these old cars from, like, the 60s and stuff like that, and everyone's standing around. They all got old cars. Brad Pitt's one of the guys racing, and he's so greasy and bad boy, and I love it.
The little tongue thing that he has going on. I don't know if he does it in this scene, but he does the little tongue thing. It's so gross to me.
Like 4 times in this episode, he flicks his tongue back and forth. You're like, all right. But his hair's, like, real slicked back, but later it's, like, over his face, and it's kind of cute. Like, oh, come on. It's a little cute. He's cute.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. I just can't agree with you there.
He's cute.
He acts like a punk. And
he is. He's supposed to be.
This is not Greece. You're not a punk. Sit your ass down.
They're doing a race.
Sorry.
It's Greece.
Sit your ass down. You're not tough. I'm sorry.
So he's racing this other guy, and the guy looks a little bit older in the other car. He's in this red car, and Brad Pitt's in a yellow one. And all these guys are in leather jackets, because you can't race without a leather jacket. And they're going down this drag race, and everything's going fine. And then all of a sudden, the red car, I guess, pops a tire, I think is what he does. And he just flips and swirls out in front of Brad Pitt and does this it's a really good flip. The car crash is pretty cool. It's like all this flip. And you're like, that guy's dead. He's totally dead. But you can also see the cables that pull the car at the end. So that's kind of fun. And Brad Pitt's character is like, woo! And like kissing the skull, and he writes the names of whoever he demolishes on the road on his arm in a tattoo. And it's like, that guy's dead. You just wooed for his death.
Right. Kind of makes me wonder if they actually used a driver in that scene, or if they used like a dummy or like a stunt person, because like I assume like with the cable and stuff, that's why it's there.
I don't think there's anyone in the car. I think at that point they probably just flipped the car and just you're like, yeah, he's gone. Like you're just going with it. But yeah, so then it cuts to another time. It's like, I mean, you don't really know. Like I said, I kind of, for a while, I like to think of it being in the past, but I don't think it really is, and I'll get into that later. But it's like the next day or a few days later, and I think they're in like Arizona or somewhere with tarantulas. And there's a red car that also looks like the car from the beginning, but it is not, which is also confusing. This man is working on it, and his daughter Carrie comes out, and she's in her like skanky, I guess it's not skanky, but she's a waitress at like a hop, like where you skate around almost, like a car, like a Sonic.
Yeah,
like a Sonic.
Like the Sonic of like the 50s or 60s or whatever.
But
where
it's not. It's the 90s. And was that his butt crack?
It might have been.
Okay, so hang on. Brad Pitt pulls up. I thought I saw it earlier. So she's coming out and she's like, "Oh my god, I gotta go to work." And he's like, "Do you have a ride?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she gets in a car with this chick and this other chick who works there, and she's taking her. And then behind her is the yellow car with Brad Pitt, and he goes to get out of the car to talk to this guy working on it.
Yep.
Yeah, just a little bit of butt crack. Okay, you got a little bit of... So, y'all, if you're into Brad Pitt's butt crack, you get a glimpse of that there. And he comes out, and he's wearing, boots and leather. And this guy, what's his name in the actual... I'm just going to call him the Iceman. So, the Iceman is underneath the car working on it. And there's, like, the way it's shot's kind of cool. It's, like, through the car hood. And Brad Pitt's hanging over it. And he says he's looking for this guy.
See, I was hoping you could help me out. I'm trying to track down this old boy supposed to live around here.
Who is that?
Well, now, I haven't actually met him yet. Been kind of hard to track down. Sure is a sweet car. This yours?
No, it's my daughter's. Mine's out in the front.
You're putting some muscle into this, sweetheart. I like that. Well, I best be hitting the road. I appreciate your time.
You still didn't tell me who you're looking for.
Oh, well, he's a real smart guy. Real fast guy. So they say.
What's his name?
Iceman.
And the guy underneath him is like, who? And then he's like, the Iceman. And he's like, what? And he comes flying out real quick. This is why I think it's somewhat supernatural, because Brad Pitt's back in his car and down at the end of the road in like a second.
Yeah, that was a little bit strange to me. Like the second that he got out, like got up and like was there, it was like, oh, Brad Pitt's gone. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was like he literally started the car and left. And the point, because this guy flies out from under the car when he hears the name Iceman.
Like, don't give it away, dude. Like, seriously, you could have acted a little bit more cooler than that if you were trying to, like, hide who you are.
Because
like,
that's definitely what made me think it, even though I'm not sure it's supposed to be. They really don't explain it. And you kind of hope that it is something, because it makes it more fun if it's more supernatural,
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, he pops out in, like, 2 seconds, the guy looking for Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt's not there. And so he goes and stands in the middle of the road. And that's when his car comes flying at him. You find out this guy's a cop now. So he's a cop. He's probably like in his 50s, about 50. And so Brad Pitt's coming at him with the car, and he doesn't even flinch. And Brad Pitt goes around him, and he's just like standing there with his dad bod. He's all like, whatever. And then that's when Brad Pitt does the tongue thing as he drives away. He's like, yeah, I'm a snake. And I was like, now that's a cop dad. He doesn't even flinch. That car's coming right at him, and he's just like, what? But now this guy knows that this guy's the Iceman, this cop, and we're going to find out what that's all about. So they cut to later at this restaurant or this Sonic or whatever. It's still a bunch of old cars, so it makes me wonder what year it really is. It kind of bounces back and forth. I don't know if it's supposed to be the 90s or people just like old cars in this town.
Yeah.
So he's at their and the Iceman cop guy is there, and he's kind of
creepy with
his daughter. Yeah.
Like, seriously, like, she's wearing this really skimpy thing, and he's like, I think he calls her baby or something. Yeah. It's so gross.
She's like, you want a milkshake? And he's like, okay, baby. Because you don't really get a good look at her in the beginning, so then you think it's another woman, and then you're like, oh, wait, that's his daughter. Okay. And so Brad Pitt drives up next to him. I don't even care what his name is. Brad Pitt drives up next to him, and he's in his car smoking, and he's like, oh, look, we ran into each other again. I'd love to share some road with you and have a race, Iceman. And he's like, you got the wrong person. I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, oh, okay, my bad. But then he's kind of flirting with the daughter after he leaves.
Hi.
Hi.
You have to take off.
That happens all the time.
Why don't you take it?
Got your dad's eyes.
And he's all like, looking at the daughter, and he's like, you have your dad's eyes. And I'm like,
That's not creepy at all.
do you want to do her dad? Like, what is... Like, and she's like, oh my gosh, I do, but come on, he's cute right here. Come on, he's kind of cute. Look at his hair. Like, he could grease a bowl of popcorn with that hair. It's so greasy.
Okay, I'll give it to you. He is somewhat attractive.
And he's got, like, a little bit of some stubble there, and his hair's wet, like, in his face. But yeah, he's all like, you got your dad's eyes, and she's like, oh, swoon. And so she needs a ride home, and so he gives her a ride home and drives like 80 miles an hour, and she's like, that is so sexy, I'm almost gonna die. And then parked outside of her house, and by now the hairs fall down into his face. They say goodbye, and they do like this gross kind of like tongue thing, kiss thing.
Which I want to point out too, like, what are their ages too? Because it's never like, it's ambiguous as what their ages are, but I assume the daughter's the teenager, and
Yeah.
Brad Pitt's character's gotta be what, in his 20s? So it's kind of like creepy that he's like hitting on someone's
Yeah.
daughter who's like a teenager. Like,
Yeah, I want to say she's at least probably 17, and then he's probably at least 21, if not like 23. I don't know. And apparently all he does for a living is stalk people who he wants to drag race and possibly kill.
yeah.
So he can get it tattooed down his arm. So she goes in, she's like, okay, bye. I only known you for like an hour. I'm in love. And this is going to totally piss my dad off. I can't wait. Even though her and her dad seem to get along pretty well. So I don't know what...
Yeah, maybe she's having like a rebellious, I mean, because like most teenagers go through that like rebellious stage. Maybe she's having a little bit of like, oh, maybe I'll date the bad guy or the bad boy, and like
Like I said, he is cute. And he... So you're like... And he's got a nice car.
How can he afford it though if all he does is like, does he get money from like racing these people?
That's what
like,
makes me wonder, is he really just dead from the past? Is this some sort of play on the movie Sometimes They Come Back or whatever? So she leaves to go inside, and so he waits till she leaves, and Brad Pitt gets out with this manila envelope and a little box, and he goes over to the mailbox, and he puts this envelope in. It's got all this information in it about the Iceman. And then he opens up this little box that he's just been hanging on to, and there's a little tarantula in it. Well, it's not really little, but there's a tarantula. And he just sets the tarantula inside the mailbox and shuts the door. And you're like, all right, well, I guess he was trying to send a message.
I guess so.
And so the next day, Iceman cop comes out barefoot.
Bare-chested,
Bare-chested, he's got his shirt open.
I think that's like the first sign that he's having a midlife crisis.
Hey, he's not bad looking for an older dude. He's got the white fur everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And he comes out, and he's standing there, and he opens the mailbox, and he doesn't look, he just puts his hand in. And when he pulls it out, the tarantula's just precariously dangling on top of his hand, and he's immediately like, ew, and throws it on the ground and steps on it.
Which is a little bit like overkill. Like, you gotta just let it go. Like, it
Yeah.
didn't bite you, it didn't do anything, it just kind of wanted to be.
And
poor thing was in a box.
Yeah, like tarantulas aren't normally that aggressive unless you're watching like Eight-Legged Freaks, which is a spider movie where they are. But he stomps them out and they show it. Like he's barefoot and he stomps on this thing and it looks like peanut butter shooting out of the tarantula, and it's just like, and then you're like, well, I guess that guy's dead. Okay, I think we're like in Arizona, you probably could have just let him leave. So he gets the information, and in the envelope it's all about this guy, this racer called the Iceman, which is him, and it was 27 years ago, so it was, and it was 27 years ago, and somehow they had a car race, and he ended up doing involuntary manslaughter on some guy in the other car, and then he got away with it. Whether, I don't know if it's because maybe his dad was a cop and helped him get, because sometimes it kind of runs in the family, you do the cop thing. Somehow he got out of it.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned to you too, like, there's a goof on the articles, if you actually read it, it's about like a rapist or something that was caught or something. Wasn't actually about the manslaughter charge or something. It's kind of funny.
If you
like,
really read it, it's not
what it's supposed to be. It's like, I mean, it's not funny that it's about that, but it's like, it's funny that it's like, they couldn't have spent the extra money to like actually make sure that the print matches what it's supposed to be.
It's for like 2 seconds. No one cares. Some guy died. For some reason, Brad Pitt wants revenge on this, and so he's trying to get the Iceman to race him. So now they're back. It's like the next night or so, a couple nights later. I don't know. Brad Pitt's back at the Sonic place or whatever, and Carrie, the daughter, is out there talking to him and kind of flirting and stuff. Brad Pitt leaves after flirting with the daughter, kind of makes plans with her to get together with her later. And then, so he comes across the cop and he starts speeding because he wants the Iceman to catch up with him. So then there's like this kind of fun chase scene. Brad Pitt's doing the tongue thing again and driving really fast in his car, and the cop's trying to catch up with him, which is what he wants. And the other cops are like, do you want us to help you? And he's like, no, I'm gonna get him. Like, he's just following Brad Pitt's character in this car race. I guess Brad Pitt's just trying to be like, I think he's just trying to show him his skills and be like, you missed some of this. Like, cops after him, and they get like he almost gets hit by a semi, the cop does, before Brad Pitt peels out. So I think it's just kind of like, yeah, you like that? You remember that 27 years ago, that feeling? Pull out your leather jacket, we're gonna do this again. He eludes the Iceman cop, and so it's, I don't know, sometime later, it's daytime now, and he goes back home and he sees that Brad Pitt's car is outside, parked halfway in the yard and halfway on the driveway. Like, it's very disrespectful. This whole scene here, I was like, I could see how a dad would get mad.
Right, like, seriously, like,
this is bad, because he comes there and he's like, he didn't even park right.
Well, I'm sure the second thought is, well, my daughter is home, like, uh-oh, like,
yeah.
This is not good, like,
And so he gets out and he's like, great. So he goes running inside. He's not even waiting. He's like, I know whose car this is. And he goes running in like, do I even want to know? And it's what he thinks. They're in the middle or finishing up doing, I don't know. She's putting her clothes back on. And he's like, that's it. And she's like, Daddy, don't I love him? And then she comes out he comes out from her room where she's putting her clothes on. And I love it because right away, Brad Pitt's standing there shirtless with like these really bad tattoos that look like they were just glued on almost.
Yeah.
And he just comes up and punches him in the nose and just breaks his nose like right there, knocks him down and is picking him up and just busts it. And I was like, yeah, I kind of could see that. I mean, this guy is being very disrespectful. And the whole time he's just bad-mouthing the Iceman cop.
Hi, Joe.
Daddy, what are you doing?
Stay away from him, Carrie.
No, what are you hitting him for?
Nothing happened, sir. I just brought her home. That's all.
Don't hit him again.
Get out of my way, Carrie.
No.
Carrie, he's using you.
Come on, Joe. Catch it. Come on.
That's what got in you.
Go to your room.
Sorry, Carrie. I'll go.
Billy, wait, I'm coming with you.
The hell you walk. Move!
It's all right.
Billy.
Oh, come on, Joe.
And Carrie's like, stop it. Don't. I love him. And the cop's like, he's just using you. And yeah, so I mean,
Those tattoos, though, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of cool, like, the spider tattoo, which, like, like, earlier with the tarantula and stuff, it's like, like
Billy, that's his name, Billy. I forgot. So
There we
Brad
go.
Pitt's character's name is Billy. He's just sitting there and he's got the blood all over his face, and it's kind of cool, like, you got that cool thing, like, they're like, yeah, my nose is broken, but I don't care. I'm just letting the blood fall all over my face.
Makes
And
you look tough.
Yeah, and he's, like, all shirtless still. The cop man name is Joe. I don't care. Joe. And so he's basically in Joe's face like, yeah, I know all about how you got away from those manslaughter charges, and what if you were to go to jail right now, who would take care of your daughter? He's like, kind of like insinuating, like, I could take care of your daughter.
Right, it's kind of going in for the kill. Like, if you can't get to somebody, like, try to taunt them with a family member or his daughter, because the mother is not present, so,
Yeah,
like, I
there's
would
a mom.
assume, like, maybe that's, like, his only daughter, and, like, they're
Yeah.
all each other has, so, like, he's very protective of her, and I'm sure, like, being a cop, too, like, adds another aspect of it, like, wanting to be overly protective of your daughter, but at the same time, like...
Yeah. Well, and then, so he was handcuffing Billy, and then he decided not to, and he uncuffs him, and Brad Pitt kind of, like, swings around him, and for a second, it looks like he's rubbing his nipple. Like, he's kind of like, you don't want to do that, rub, and then he just walks around, and I'm like...
Is that, like, an alpha male thing?
Yeah, I'm like, okay. And then, so he's like, yeah, that's right. He's like, I can take care of your daughter, all that stuff. And so he goes to leave, and the daughter's like, I want to be with you, I love you, even though I'm sneaking out of my window, and I'm going to come with you, even though I've known you for like a week.
Or, like, a minute.
And you're covered in blood, that's awesome, and your pants aren't even buttoned yet, that's great. So she trusts him, and she goes with him, and he's all, Joe, the cop dude, is all mad, and comes running out. Somehow he finds him, I don't know.
That's the other thing.
Does he
like,
trail him? I don't know.
maybe using the driver's license plate, but
I guess he trails him, I don't know, or maybe he gets a phone call. So he goes to this like junkyard of all these old trailers, and Billy's living
half house.
Billy's living in a half of a double wide that has a whole wall missing, and he's watching TV somehow, and there's just like hubcaps on the wall and a couch, and there's no daughter. The cop guy shows up, and he's like, what's going on? Where's my daughter? I need her back. And you find out that Billy put her in the trunk. I don't know how long she's been in this trunk, but I'm assuming it's warm outside.
How you doing, Billy?
Glad you can make it, Joe.
You want a race, Billy? You name the place, I'll name the time.
All right. Airstrip outside of town.
Tomorrow night, midnight. Now, where's my daughter?
Who? Oh, your daughter? Well, Joe, I'll tell you something about your daughter. She was starting to get a real bad attitude. Women, huh? Well, it don't matter. Nothing if you change couldn't handle. Fits perfectly back to just like a little spare tire. Whoa! Now let's not lose our cool, Iceman. Wouldn't do any of us any good. Oh, Joe, I hate to treat you like this. What do you think? I'm just gonna hand her over to you and expect you to show up? Can't see it.
What are you saying, Billy?
I'm saying, she's a stake, see? You win, you get her back.
And if I lose?
Well, then I'll have to kill her, won't I?
He opens the trunk to show him, and she's like ball gagged in there, tied with like these restraints from like a sex shop. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he even said she's just like a little spare tire. He just has her tied up in the back. He's like, I want you to race me. If you lose, then I'm going to kill your daughter, and if you win, you can have her back. I don't know why. I guess he thinks he's going to kill him the same way he kills the other people, which means he's probably tampering with their cars.
Probably.
Because a lot of the times I wouldn't imagine you would... The end of a car race is not death.
No, usually it's like you have a winner and a loser. And the fact that that guy, like, at the beginning, like, flipped over and, like, it looked like his tire or something went out. Like,
I feel like it was messed with. Because there's no way you would just die. But then it doesn't make sense if he's trying to get revenge on Joe for killing someone if he's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I wonder if he's from the past. I don't know. This one's all over the place.
It is a little bit. And you just kind of, like, wonder, what's his motive? Like, he didn't know the cop up until this point. So he just suddenly picked him out. Like, how did he get all this information? Like, there's a lot of stuff that is kind of left in the open that you don't know.
He's on one of those old computers from the 90s that's only got
the
the color green and orange on it.
Oh, yes, I remember those.
Play an Oregon Trail on it from a floppy disk. That's what I used to do.
With the old dial-up.
Yeah.
You have to wait for it to, like,
it wasn't even
load.
dial-up. It was just, like, those old Apple Macintosh things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So he agrees. He's like, fine. And, of course, they're going to race at midnight. And part of me is like, are they leaving the daughter in the trunk till midnight? Because it's only, like, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, because it's Arizona and, like, you know, middle of the desert and it's hot as heck. Why would you leave someone in the trunk if you wanted to leave them alive until at least the race? Like, did he bring her back into his, like, half house that he has?
Yeah.
We're calling it a half house
It
because
is a
that is
half house.
not. That is
It's
like
half
a
of a
tragedy.
double wide. It's like, because sometimes I know, like, with those, they'll transport them separate and then hook them together when they get, so it's like that. They just separated it, but then the other one went away, and he just has the one half. So now Joe goes to see his friend, his junkyard friend, who just lives in a junkyard.
And plays music.
And plays guitar. And he's got real bad teeth. And he's just hanging out. And he's super happy to see Joe. Like, I guess he knew him from back in the day. And he's all like,
Holy Moses, I don't believe it. Joe, is it really you?
It's me, man.
Eight balls in hell, I knew you'd come back, I knew it. One day I said, one day he's gonna come riding out of oblivion just like Shane, and oh man, that road is gonna burn.
Mo, I gotta know. Is she still there?
The car has no wheels either, so it's like,
well, I
really,
mean, I guess
dude?
they put everything on. They had till midnight. But he's like, hey, man, junkyard friend, do you still have my car after 27 years? And he's like, you know what, I do. And he takes you in, and this is how I know it's not from the past, really, because this is a black car. It's not, so it's obviously Brad Pitt's just going around taking out people with drag racing. I don't know. And so he goes and shows them the car's still there. There's no wheels on him yet, but it has been kept tuned up and it can still run. Isn't he lucky?
That his junkyard friend does this for him.
Yeah, that his junkyard friend who has bad teeth and lives in a junkyard didn't sell it to have money for food and or dental care.
Right. Like, if I had a car like that, because that's a really nice car, I would have sold that thing if I knew, like, I was going to be destitute, like, I wasn't going to have a house or anything.
I mean, he also, the junkyard's friend seems like he's, like, Joe's, like, his best friend ever that he hasn't seen in forever. Like, he's so excited. It's almost kind of sad. And so, they get the car all ready, and it's time to do the race. And of course, like I said, one can't race without a leather jacket. So Joe shows up with this leather jacket and these really light denim and these boots, and he's got his car all souped up, and they're outside of an airport hangar thing. It's like a real long runway, like an airplane would take off of, I think.
Hashtag midlife crisis. Hashtag
Yes.
dad issues. Like, seriously, like, and it's small, too. Like, it doesn't even fit him all that well. Like, it comes up, like...
It's the old jacket. It's the one that he used when he committed manslaughter. I don't know.
Get a different jacket if you're gonna race again. Like, if you're gonna have a midlife crisis, get one that at least fits. Sorry, I said it.
It didn't look too bad. Brad Pitt's in the car with Carrie, and it's kind of creepy because he's got a hold of her, and he's like got the gun to her head, and he's like kissing on her, and she's like, oh my god, I can't believe I fell for this. And then he pulls up and he lets Carrie out. He thinks about it for a second, but he gives Carrie the gun because for some reason you can't have, again, a car race without a gunshot. It's dark out. I guess you want to alert everyone with a gunshot. I think they're pretty far out, but still.
Yeah, like, if he wasn't gonna... Because he told them, like, don't tell your cop friends, like,
Yeah.
any of that. Like, a gunshot would obviously bring around, like, people, because somebody might hear it. But again, I guess it was too late, because sometimes they'll use the flags for racing and stuff, too.
Yeah,
So I guess they
I'm like,
couldn't
use
see
a
it.
flag or just have her yell go. I don't know, like, because they were also like, we'll flash our high beams or whatever for you to shoot, and it's like, I still feel there's going to be a couple of seconds delay with the start off. So he thinks about it for a second, but Brad Pitt gives Carrie the gun so she can shoot it off. Immediately, she points it to him, and she looks like she's going to pull it. Like, she's cocked it, she's like, let's do this. And her dad's like, no, don't shoot him. And it's like, okay, like, you could arrest him right now, but I guess because if he died anyway, no one would find out about this manslaughter. I guess he didn't want his daughter to have that on her conscience, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
She would have probably done it, though. I mean, it's not like she probably didn't know how to shoot. Her dad-
She knew. She looked like she
Yeah.
was willing and ready to do
she
it.
was like, I don't care. I don't care if 12 hours ago you were inside me. I'm sorry, that's gross. I might cut that. Anyway, so they go to get in the cars and get to the race. It's a fast race. It's pretty lackluster in a way. I mean, she shoots the gun off, they go, and then almost immediately he crashes into a wall. He doesn't even stop. They hit, I guess that was the finish line. I don't know what their rules were, really.
yeah, they never really went over the rules, but I felt like this was really, like, anticlimactic. He just crashes his vehicle and, like, okay, it's done.
It was a cool crash in the fact of, like, Joe pulls over to the side, I guess, I don't know who won, but he pulls over to the side, and for some reason Brad Pitt doesn't stop, and then there's just this random bulldozer that's facing him, and he crashes right into it, and the whole car just smashes real good. It's a really good scene, but it's just real quick and lackluster for the whole episode to be building up for this to just be like, and now he's dead. But he's not quite dead. So this is where Joe gets out of his car, and he walks over, and you get a glimpse of his decent dad butt and a pair of these tight jeans. I'm like, all right, yeah, you get a good look. And see right here, decent dad butt. And so Brad Pitt's hanging out of the car. He's still got the cigarette in his hand, even though
Yeah.
he's all smashed up and bleeding.
His head is all bashed in. He's got blood and, like, around his lips and stuff. And
Earlier, like I said, he likes to put the tattoo of the name, and he had already tattooed Joe's name, well, Garrett on there, which I guess Garrett's his last name. So he was putting Garrett on his arm because he thought he would win because he's very cocky.
yeah, I think that's, like, a testament again to his hubris. Like, he thought, oh, yeah, if I tattoo this on, I am for sure gonna win.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude. Like,
And he already
that's
had,
just
like-
foreshadowing in its finest. Like, that's just setting it up for failure.
Yeah.
Right then and there. The second you did that.
And he already had like 8 or 9 names on his arm anyway. And so, yeah, so he's half out of it. He's blood everywhere. He's like, I think you win. And then I guess he assumes that Garrett would take him into prison because he ends up flicking the lighter and throwing it on the ground. Somehow he knew it was leaking gas. I don't know.
Looks like you win, Iceman. Wrong.
He throws it on the ground, and so Officer Garrett runs off. Of course, the car explodes. It's a pretty crazy, like, it's an inferno.
I mean, maybe they had to make up for the lack of gore in this episode with the big explosion of some sort, you know? Like,
That's
they thought
true.
that was...
Yeah, besides the spider getting killed, there's really nothing. Well, and some blood on the face and stuff. But at this time, I love it though, because like they did a pretty long race, and by this time, Carrie's just now reaching them running, and she's like leaning in her dad like, and I'm like, oh girl, I know, I hate running. I'm like, I'd feel that soon. She's just like, hang on a second, okay, hey guys, and he's like, okay, it's all over, and she's like, okay, sorry, Dad, that I let him touch me. I don't know. And so then they walk away. She's still got the gun. Some corny song is on about rolling with the punches, and that's the end of the episode. It's a weird episode.
It really is. And I would have thought, like, at the end when they were walking away, I was, like, anticipating, like, maybe Brad Pitt's character had sent off the articles and information that he found to, like, maybe mess with the dad in the end, but it just kind of abruptly ended with them just walking off and everything else is hunky-dory again.
But what I wonder, too, is why that would do anything, because I don't know how he got away with it, but if there were articles, there's a possibility that Joe got acquitted, so he wouldn't be tried for it anyway. It's been
That's
27 years, so it's like, what? Unless he just didn't want his daughter to know, but I don't know. I think the reason he was threatening jail time anyway was because he beat the crap out of him, and that would be, like, brutality, but it's like, I don't know really what it would do. So, I mean, I like to think of it supernatural. I don't think it is. I mean, it'd be fun if it was, in a way, but I think this was just some young guy going around taking out racers that did bad stuff. I don't...
Maybe.
Sure.
I mean, maybe, though, with Officer Garrett, like, maybe it wouldn't impact his career as an officer, though. You know, because it seemed like when they asked if he need help, like, when he was chasing Brad Pitt's character, and he's like, no, I got it. Like, maybe he's a well-respected officer, so maybe this would have done something to his career. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, he'd already had 27 years at least in the force, probably, or
True.
longer. I mean, he could have retired by now, but maybe he didn't want to. But yeah, I guess reputation. Well, and then your daughter probably had no idea
right.
that you had involuntarily manslaughtered someone in a car race, and your name was the Iceman. And yeah, so I mean, it's an okay episode. It doesn't feel super Tales from the Crypt for me.
No.
But, I mean, it's still... It was fun, and there was a lot of fun, like, races and stuff in it. So, I mean, if you like cars... It's kind of fun, and very young Brad Pitt. So yeah, so that was the end of season 4, episode 9, King of the Road. And then we cut back to the Crypt Keeper. More Shakespeare. Now he's actually got Hamlet out, and he's wearing the little Shakespearean collar and laughing and throwing out all the puns. Crypt Keeper, you're so punny. And the best Crypt Keeper pun is...
As for me, I've got to get back to work. The group has decided to do something classical. We're trying to choose between A Midsummer Night's Scream and Julius Caesar. Care to watch from Hackstage?
But yeah, so that's the end of the episode.
Again, like, I like your theory about the supernatural thing, because it makes more sense, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. And
well, being
and
Tales
the
from the
holes.
Crypt. Usually
Yeah.
there's something... It's either something kind of supernatural, or it's infidelity, or it's greed, or it's some sort of domestic dispute. It's always something like... Or it's voodoo. That's always the other thing they throw into. That's the other one. So the fact that this one's just kind of like there... There's a couple other episodes in the series that are like that too, where it's like there's really nothing supernatural, just people letting things get to them.
Yeah.
And then they end up making a mistake.
And it could be that this was just one of those episodes,
Yeah.
but then again, it's possible that there are some other supernatural things behind it, but I feel like there's like a lot of plot holes too in it. I mean, maybe that is just the nature of the beast too, you know?
Yeah. But there is some trivia here from IMDb for this episode. Despite the on-screen credit for Two-Fisted Tales comic book, this was not based on any EC comic and is actually an original story. It was originally produced for the unsold anthology series Two-Fisted Tales from 1992. This movie was shot in 92. The Iceman's incident took place 27 years earlier, making that year 1965. That's a trivia about math. The Iceman's car was a black 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air two-door sedan running an automatic transmission. It is missing the front bumper, a popular deletion in the early 1960s to save weight on the car. Billy's car was a yellow 1969 Chevrolet Chevelle two-door hardtop running a 4-speed transmission, for all y'all who like cars. And Carrie's car that was being fixed in the beginning was a red 1965 Ford Mustang with a 289 V8 engine as the fuel pump was seen. The title is based on the 1965 song King of the Road, written and recorded by country singer Roger Miller.
Which is interesting going back to the red car too, because you notice that at the very beginning, Brad Pitt's character was racing a red car that looked identical to Carrie's car.
Yeah, which I think was just coincidence, which is kind of, because that's what threw me off in the beginning when I first watched the episode. I was like, oh, because I thought it was almost the guy in the car, like in the past, because the guy that he was racing was an older man that looked kind of like him, and then it was a red car. But then it cuts to this other car being fixed. I mean, at first I was like, supernatural, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, nah, I think he's just crazy. so yeah, that's the end of that. Again, that's the end of season 4, episode 9, King of the Road. The next episode is season 4, episode 10, Maniac at Large. Cindy, thank you very much for being on this episode.
Well, thank you for having me.
I hope you had a good time.
I had a very good time. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you guys out there for downloading and listening to this episode. If you want, you can follow me on Facebook. I also have a Twitter page for the Good Evening Kitties podcast at GEK Podcast. That's at GEK Podcast. You can also leave a review on iTunes or on the Facebook page. You can find me on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, Podbay, all kinds of stuff. I don't know. Thanks again for listening. Have a good one.
I just had quite a scare. I actually thought my heart was beating.